Good morning, everyone. Salam alaikum. 你们好。I am Ilshat Hassan Kokbore from East Turkestan. I am Uyghur, currently lives in United States, Virginia. Work as a records management professional. That's the daily job. Also as a Uyghur, and since came to US, I joined the Uyghur community and also the World Uyghur Congress. So I have another one title in the World Uyghur Congress as a director of the Department of Chinese Affairs of World Uyghur Congress. That's me. It's more about interrogation, not formally charged, because I was active since in the university in 1985, 86, and we had some organized some demonstration asking for the freedom for Uyghur, take part in the 1985 Uyghur movement in the Urumqi. Even though we are far away from Urumqi in the Dalian, Liaoning in China, but we still try to be part of the Uyghur movement. So we did some demonstration over there and sent to the Chinese government, central government petition letter. So because of my constant asking, organizing some movement and asking for freedom. So I was put in the blacklist of Chinese government. And when after I graduated back to East Turkestan, and I couldn't get a job in capital city Urumqi because of I don't know if you know, in China all graduate students have an archive. Inside the archive, they give you the judgment. If you are a good student, which means loyal to the communists, loyal to the so-called the Chinese People's Republic, listen to the party's guidance, follow the guidance, that's the good student. And if you are marked as not following the rule, not very active, which means you are not following the communist guidance, not following the communist instruction, and in the black list, which means you are potential enemy of the communist government. So I was on that list. So when I back, I couldn't get job at capital city of the East Turkestan, Urumqi, and so I have to find a job in Shihezi, which is located north of the Urumqi, 150 kilometers away. And it is more significant in the Chinese. Just yesterday, the U.S. government sanctioned the Chinese military cooperation, which Bingtuan, and Shihezi is the Bingtuan's capital, I would say, in East Turkestan. So I find a job over there that was very difficult, and I could only able to get a job over there. And then because over there, I still continued activity. Actually, it's not something organized activity. Just when I saw something unfair and saw witnessing some discrimination against Uyghur. For example, I am a teacher, so when I bring my minority student, Uyghur, Kazakhs, to the factory for practice, and the Chinese boss will say, no, we don't want Uyghur, we don't want minority, we don't want just Kazakh, blah, blah. Then I will fight for them and I will accuse them. And sometimes in the college, they are insulting the Uyghurs' culture or Kazakhs' culture, our different, because we are different. And so I always protest for that. And then Kim's one of my friends, he organized a underground organization. I wasn't officially member, but I am sympathizing his fighting for the Uyghur. and he got arrested, and that's the first time I was get detained and interrogated a whole week, and I was beaten. And after a few years later, probably 97 or 98, another one of my students, he became teacher in Urumqi after graduate. He suddenly show up after he become teacher 1 or 2 years later. He suddenly show up in my workplace and say he is come for something. Immediately I sensed something wrong with him, but he is a good student. He was a good Uyghur guy, so I allowed him to stay in my home, and he stayed around months. And then suddenly one day he said he will need to leave. And at that moment, I asked him what happened, and he said, "Police come to arrest me, and I am run away. So I did hide in. Actually, I come here to hide. Thank you, teacher." And I asked him if you need any financial. He said no, and I didn't ask where he will go. I just told him, if you want, you can continue stay in my home, or I can find some place to give you a shelter. You can hide for a while. He said, no, let me leave. And he left. After months or two, then police came again, and they grabbed me, and they again, around a week interrogation, they beat me. And they used the electric baton to shock me. So yeah, that's how it comes. And in one encounter, I did resist, and then they accused me of attacking the police, and I was almost sentenced for 3 years. And I had some good friend in Shihezi. Some of them is Kazakh, some of them high official, specifically one high official Kazakh friend. He is old one, and he helped me. So I paid a fine, and then under the it's called 监控 in Chinese. It's kind of you are under the surveillance. I can give you some example. One day, I was ban 主任 in Chinese called. It's like you have a 45 around student administration, college administration will assign a teacher to responsible for them, almost like a babysitter from morning to at night before they sleep. And even sometimes we will go to their student dorm to check if they are sleeping. That was a requirement. Early morning, we need sometimes we need to go to their student dorms to wake them up and line up them, and then give them some exercise, and then the raising flag, something like that. And a lot of time, the students, some of them, I remember it's once I was in a medical school teaching the Chinese language, and one day morning when I was there, went over there to teach, and one student, he is from Kashgar, he was not in the class, and I asked him because he is a very hardworking student. I say, where is Daojan? And they told me he was in the school's police station. I say, what happened? And because he is mourning, he was praying, and somebody funded him or tipped the school administration. And today morning, they burst into the student dorm and then finally he was praying. That was very early, 1990 or 2000 around. And then I said, okay, let me finish the class because because I was their contracting teacher. So after the class, I went to the school administration, the medical school, and I asked them what happened. This student is a good student. He was hard studying. He's a good, and I have some good relationship with them. And one Chinese official lady, she told me, Ilshat, sorry, he was praying and he shouldn't do that. And the police find out, school police department find out he was praying. So probably he will be dismissed from the school. And I said, can we do something? Because probably, I don't know, the Chinese system. It's very corrupted. Sometimes you spend money at that time, you can do something. So I asked the lady, can we do something? I want to save this student. He is a good student. And that lady said, okay, Ilshat, let's try. And after a week, she said, can we have a dinner in a nice restaurant? I will invite the police department. I said, okay, do that. Then I did spend my money to invite the police department chief and that official. And then they were saying, oh, this student shouldn't be prayed, blah, 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 blah. And then I said, oh, yeah, I apologize for that. I will educate them, don't pray. And then, yes, he was saved, giving a warning. And I told that student, please get your graduation. I want you to become a doctor. Find a job. You are Uyghur. It's not easy to get into the medical school. So I want you first to get a job. I believe Allah will forgive you and forgive all of us because we couldn't do the practice our belief, our religion. But I want you to get education. So that was a part of one incident. And then another one time, it was a job fair just in my college, and we have around a few thousand students. So afternoon, my class was that year will graduate. It was like May or June. So I brought my student to the job fair, and I choose some best student. Follow me. I will talk to the job, the hiring recruiter. And I went to one. They look at me. Are you Uyghur? Yes. Are you applying for a job? No, I'm teacher. The back of me, they're my best student. Oh, sorry. We don't hire Uyghur. We don't hire minority. And then I went to next. Again, same answer. Again, same answer. And then I was get furious. And I asked one of them, do you know what is this place called? He said, Shihezi, the provincial level. And then look at me. He said, Uyghur Autonomous Region. This is Uyghur Autonomous Region. This is not Shanghai. This is not Sichuan. You need to hire local people. Why you are saying we are not hiring? And I was mad. I was furious. But they were looking at me like I am someone alien, come from others and don't understand their local something. And they are looking at me. Teacher, if you have some complaint, you can go to the Urumqi, you can go to Beijing. I don't care, but don't disrupt my job. You ought. Yeah, that was their answer. Is Turkestan current situation? It's an open jail, I would say. More like if we look at movie, I like the movie Pianist, Schindler's List. If you just look at occupied Poland, Warsaw, in Second World War under the German Nazi, it's the same situation. You can see the same checkpoint. You can see the same ghetto. The ghetto is now concentration camp, so-called factory. Uyghur was incarcerated inside that big compound, just like the ghetto in the Warsaw in occupied Poland in Second World War. Passport. We were never had that lucky to get passport. Suddenly in 2014, 13, suddenly the Chinese government encouraging Uyghur to get passport. And a lot of what I heard is even they go to homes one by one say why you don't want to get passport. So some Uyghur people is very smart. Some of them, when they find out the passport was sending to your home, some intellectuals say, no, this is not right. Something will happen. But they don't get it. So some Uyghur, no, I don't want passport. They didn't get it. Some Uyghur was thinking, okay, let me grab it. Let me go to overseas. Let me see the world. So they came to Turkey. They came to US, they visited Europe, visited Central Asia, and some went for Hajj in Mecca. Yesterday is Hajj day. And some went to Southeast Asia, even Taiwan, Hong Kong. And then 14 comes Chen Quanguo, and he started categorizing Uyghur. Anyone visited overseas, grab them. Anyone had a passport, grab them. Anyone had relatives in overseas, grab them. Send them to so-called education camp. Indefinite. You don't know when you will get out. You only know I'm in here and I have to be monitored. I have to be brainwashed with that witness testimony in US, in Turkey, in Central Asia, in Kazakhstan, and you can name it what's happening over there. I was reading the concentration camp survivor, what is his name? Levy. I was reading his book, and one of his book, he was in Auschwitz, and he was describing how when the first person was grabbed into the Auschwitz, and they will shave your head first, and then give you a number, and then take you to the bus, and first thing will be ask you to take off your clothes naked, and then if you are hesitate, they will beat you. And in that book, Levi was describing after you were shaved and you were naked, and gradually you will lose your dignity, your pride, your sense of human being. You were subhuman, and they will try to make you to be that in that self-droning. So the Chinese copied it the same. So they grabbed the people, shave their hair, and then naked them, asking them to take off clothes, and feeding them some medical. If anyone not following their guide, beat them. And the lady, she was a teacher in Wulja, Chunas, a concentration camp. Her name is Sairagul Southby. Now she lives in Sweden. And within her testimony, she saw once the administration, the police chief, asked them all women line up in the concentration camp square, and in front of them they are raping a lady, and not only one. The police raping and asking them to look at. If anyone turn back, she will be raped. That is what's happening in East Turkestan. And now, after the international pressure, starting from last year, the Chinese changed the narrative and also changed the method. They, from the education camp or concentration camp, put the Uyghur, some of them just directly sent to jail. Some of them, most of them probably, sent to the forced labor camp. Over there, they're working for the Chinese company to make shoes, to make clothes, to make whatever we can name it. And probably when we buy something from Walmart, Macy, from others brand, we're wearing that Uyghur Kazakhs blood-tainted clothes. That's what's going on, what's happening in East Turkestan. And a lot of Uyghur intellectuals was also get arrested, disappeared, and very famous few, I can name it. One is a folklore professor. She was well known in US and also in Europe within the intellectual circle of study China or study Uyghurs. Her name is Rahila Dawood, and she was grabbed in airport. Since then, she is disappeared. Her daughter is in US. She keep crying, asking where is my mom, but until today, no any news. And another one, well-known poet, suddenly it's lost, not come to my mind. And she was, sorry. And also some other intellectual, for example, the principal of Xinjiang University, Tashpolat Tayyip, principal of Medical University, Khalmurat Kokbore, they're all disappeared. And some rumors, some say was sentenced to death and for with 2 years suspense. And a few times come out, Chinese try to execute them, and the international was calling Chinese government to release them, but not yet. No one know whereabouts of them. Also some others. And already some deaths came out from concentration camp. From Radio Free Asia, some report. Now we have more than 100 name. We can name them. They died in concentration camp. A few hundred, close to 1,000. So this is the situation. It's a open jail. If someone asks what is an open jail, I advise to watch the movie Pianist, watch the movie Schindler's List, then you will have a sense of what's happening over there. It's exactly the same. They can kill anyone, just like in the movie the Nazi German did, and they were grabbing people. And we also heard some criminate happened too. So it's a dire situation, and it is a genocide. And I also advise people, if you are concerned, if you still try to help Uyghur people to voice your voice, you can look at 1948, the United Nations passed Punishment and Prevention of Genocide Act 260. It has 5 clauses to define what is called genocide. If you look at it, all 5 clauses, it's happening in East Turkestan, happening to Uyghur people, happening to Kazakh people, happening to all other indigenous people. Uyghur is the most dangerous now, endangered people. We are all rounded up, more than 3 million. And personally, I have 3 sisters. All of them, what I heard last year, via Kazakhstan, they are all of them 3 sisters with their husband, with their kids in a concentration camp. And my mother, I lost contact since 2015, around August. She is 80 some years old. Since then, in 15 August, mid of August, last phone call, I don't know until today if she is alive, if she is at home or at concentration camp or in jail. I don't know. And yesterday was our Eid, and usually in this modern day, you have any celebration day. Even most of the people in Saturday will get up first thing, pick up your phone to call your mother. But we are Uyghur. It's not only my story. Whole Uyghur population in overseas, we don't have that privilege now. Yeah, I don't know if my mother was still alive. My brother was killed in 2004 after I fled from my hometown, East Turkestan. I fled in 2003. My brother was killed in 2004, 27th of November. It was the retaliation from the Chinese police because I fled, and they used the Chinese mob in a restaurant in the daylight. They killed my brother. And in 2014, 15th of August, the police burst into my elder sister's home and grabbed her. Since then, she disappeared. And then other 2 sisters, I don't know. I remember my conversation with my second sister was my elder sister got grabbed from her home. The second day, I was asking, what happened? Can you tell me more information? And she sent the last message, my second sister. The police told her husband, ask your brother in U.S., stop or come back. If no, you can't find your sister. And then they all cut off the communication with me. My other than my mother, father, all cut off. And in 2015, 4th of April, my father passed away. I can't go back. I only able to make phone call and sitting, don't know what to do. And on phone, hearing your father passed away. Then I was keep calling my mother, try to give her some comfort. After a few months later, that's the August, and my mother said, stop calling us, son. We had enough. Because of you, we had too much. And all your sister and their kids can't even find a job after graduate from university. So please, son, stop calling us God bless you. That was my last word I heard from my mother. Since then, I don't know. So for me, no Eid, no birthday, no New Year, no any celebration. When you can't hear anything from your mother, from your sister, from your brother, you have no celebration in your life. Because if you know they are died, probably you can comfort yourself. That's the life. They died. But I don't know if they died, if they're alive, if they are at home, if they are in concentration camp, if my sister was forced to feeding some unknown medicine, if they were tortured, if their kids were tortured. No, I tried to fool myself, don't think it, not to think of that part. Just fool myself to dreaming, oh, they're okay. They're probably okay. That's the only comfort I can give myself. They can help by voicing Uyghur's voice, magnify the righteous voice. Uyghur's voice is crying for humans' voice. We are part of the human civilization. We all human beings should have lived in their dignity. Shouldn't anyone become a subhuman? This is a basic for anyone. We are all human beings. So we need all stand up. If today they can put millions of Uyghur in concentration camps, and before they did in Cultural Revolution to all the people, and in Second World War, the Nazi did it, the Stalin, Russian, Soviet did it, Communist China keep doing it. If they can do it today to Uyghur, tomorrow they will do it. Not tomorrow, actually it's happening in Hong Kong now. They can put Hong Kong people in the concentration camp in millions number, more than that. If we don't stop them today, tomorrow they will attack Taiwan and grab the Taiwanese people, put them in concentration camp, and then they can claim the South China Sea. They can go to Vietnam. They can go to Philippines. They can go to all the Asia. In here, I like to study history. So I would like not exact quote, use the Churchill's word, Winston Churchill. When the Nazi attacked Europe and he sent to Roosevelt, the president at the time, a letter, and he said, if you are not come to our help, you will see a Nazi-dominated Europe, and you have to come to a term dictated by the Nazi to live with them. That was Churchill's letter to then President Roosevelt at the 1940. Now, if we are not stopping China, this communist government, in one day, not too long, we, U.S., or the free world will come to terms dominated by China, and they will dictate coexistence condition. And we, free world, will be limited to North America, Europe, part of Europe. It is a disaster. So it's not only helping Uyghur. I would say we are helping ourselves. And now it looks like you are helping Uyghur. Yes, I appreciate that. But if you look at long term, you are helping human beings, helping yourself to keep human beings' dignity, living in a free world, enjoying the freedom. That's my message to the whole audience. Whoever listening, it's Chinese, European, American, African, Asian, whatever. We are all human beings. We need to stop this evil. If we are not stopping them today, tomorrow we will pay more price, like a doomsday price. If in the Second World War, before the war happened, if some free world with the determination stopped Hitler in the first, when he tried to get to the land from the Czech Republic, probably we wouldn't have Second World War. If U.S. come to the Europe early, before the French surrender, probably we wouldn't have that big war. But we hesitated, we tried to negotiate, we tried to compromise. In the end, we have to fight. We have to sacrifice more life to win to defeat the evil. Now we are facing the same. Communists, Nazis, all is the same ideology. Their root is same. They are looking in the name of the country, in the name of the party, sacrificing, or they were say sacrificing was too soft. It's a little bit become rosy. They were desecrating, they were trampling on the people's dignity, their freedom. So we need to stop them. Uyghur is calling, crying, also Tibetan, and now Hong Kongers, just a few days early, they arrested not even 18 years old few activists from Hong Kong. And we don't know whereabouts of them. And if we are not stand firm to confront it, stop them, more Hong Kongers will be get grabbed, disappeared, and the concentration camp will be show up in Hong Kong. So we need to stand up, come together, fight this evil, stop it, defeat it. And that's the way we can save Uyghur, help Uyghur, also save the human civilization, save the value. We value freedom, democracy. That's vital for human civilization's continuation. So we need to come together. Thank you. It's a colonial name. If we talk about the history, it will be a long story. And the better way to describe, it's no exactly, the Chinese people, a lot of time, especially the Chinese government, claim that China existed for 5,000 years or 4,000 years or 5,000 years. But if you are looking at Chinese history, never had China. It's Manqing dynasty, it's Yuan dynasty, it's Song dynasty, it's Han dynasty, Tang dynasty. It is an imperial territory. Sometimes small, sometimes big. But most of the history, if we follow the Chinese in this so-called 4 or 5,000 history, they are most of the time, they are within the Great Wall inside. Please remember this. Within the Great Wall. Great Wall is the Han Empire or Central Plateau's border. Or we can say it's the farming civilization with nomad civilization's border. We are outside of the border. So that's why in Chinese have two sayings. One is 闯关东, one is 走西口. What means 闯关东? It is the Great Wall have two gates, very famous two gates. One is Shanghai Guan, it's in northeast side. After Shanghai Guan, you cross Shanghai Guan, you will be in Manchuria. Chinese call it Dongbei, but it's Manchuria. If you cross the west gate, Yumen Guan or Jiayu Guan, then you are in East Turkestan. The Chinese call it 走西口. Kou means gate. So within the Chinese history, that is written in Chinese. Outside of the Jiayu Guan is not so-called Chinese territory. That's why when Manqing in 1868, I believe, after conquered again our land, they named it Xinjiang. Xin in Chinese, new. Jiang means territory, border, which means if we say it new territory, yes. If we say it new border, yes. Because it was just conquered by Manqing dynasty. Second, Manqing is not Chinese. Manqing is not Chinese. Manqing was in Manchuria. In 1664, Manqing crossed the Shanghai Guan, the east gate of the Great Wall, and within 10 years, they conquered whole China. And they have a very famous saying, 留头不留发，留发不留头, which means if you're Chinese, follow our Manchu's culture, which is having a bread on the back, man or woman, all same. The Manchu, after conquer the Chinese, ask them to follow their culture, If you are not following, cut your head. You will lose your head. After 10 years, they conquered it. And in Chinese history, in the beginning, they call Manqing invader, conqueror, colonizer. They have their historic book, Yangzhou Sanri, that was a massacre. So within the Chinese reason, if we say, Chinese say, oh, this land is Turkestan is part of China, then it is part of, at the time, part of Manchu, not China. Chinese people have some twisted logic. Sometimes we call it Chinese logic, not human beings' logic. When it's good for them, they can twist it, use it. But it's not good for them, they can twist it, find some excuse. So back to this Xinjiang. And the Chinese have another saying. It's called 名随主人. The name should follow the owners. And in East Turkestan, even when the Chinese communists came in 1949, within their census, less than 10%, around 5 to 6% Chinese, which means in East Turkestan at that time, the majority population, 94 or 95% of population is non-Chinese. So how you to prove that's your land? You claim no. Official law is Manchu before the Manchu was overthrown. So it's not Chinese. It's a conquered new land. So this name is a colonial name, and it's insult to us. And even within the Chinese saying, it should follow locals' name. Is Turkestan? At least Uyghur Autonomous Region. But now even the Uyghurs, they don't want to say it. And even the autonomous, they don't want to say it. They just say Xinjiang. Yeah. That's their arrogance and their ignorance and their twist. It's a illogical name from all aspects. So we are not recognizing it. We are not accepting it. And in here, I just want to add one more point. And when we say is Turkestan, it is in Chinese, it should be Dong Tujue Sitan. But Chinese in some period, they intentionally translate this East Turkestan as Dong Turchi Sitan. And even me, because of the Chinese brainwashing, for a while I used that wrong name. If you read the Chinese Dong Turchi Sitan, it's easily give you an impression it's part of the Turkey, east part of the Turkey. Actually, it's not. In Chinese, when you say Turkish, it's called Tujue. It's Tujue Xue in Chinese, Turkology, blah, blah. So the Chinese historians, especially communist historians, they're playing something. And a lot of time, if some Chinese want to learn some history, I would suggest them to read this book. It's called 统一与分裂. It's written by a professor in Fudan University. His name is Ge Jianxiong. And in his book, he's clearly saying the biggest territory in the Central Empire ever had was with the Manqing. Include Uyghur, include East Turkestan, Tibet, Mongolia, South Mongolia. That was only less than 100 years, around 81 years. I forgot in this book he is written. Only had 80 some years was part of the Central Empire, mostly with the Qing dynasty. Before that, this three regions never ever part of the China. Or better we say Central Empire, because never in the Chinese history it was called China. It was called Qing Dynasty, the Ming Dynasty, Song Dynasty, Kang Dynasty, Qin Dynasty, Han Dynasty. No, there is no China. In all the script of the China is the central city. 中国 Guo means city. Zhong means central. It was just means the empire's capital was called Zhongguo. It's not for the whole empire. And now some Chinese political historians expanded its meaning, say, oh, since from the all the day 5,000 years ago, this China was existed. It's nonsense, illogical. It's ignorance. Within the Chinese own script, all the books, you can find it. I have written an article about the so-called Chinese so-called three evil, which means extremism, separatism, and religion extremism, separatism. Another one was what? Three. And especially they were saying terrorism. And my point is, if any ideology spreading in some place, you have three conditions should be fulfilled. Then this ideology can widely spread and impact the people, and you also can agitate people to follow you, follow that ideology. Let's look back. Is Turkestan, Uyghur people. Since communists took over in 1949, Uyghur never had any freedom. For an ideology to be spread, to become to impact people, you have three basic requirements. One is the people should be able to freely move. People should be freely move, which means you can move from Kashgar to Urumqi freely, and from Urumqi to Beijing, and from Beijing to Washington, D.C., Quebec, Ottawa, Paris, London, or Istanbul, Jeddah, Baghdad. You need to move freely. Since 1949, Uyghur lost all that freedom. In the Cultural Revolution, from this village to another village, you need to cross a lot of paths. And at that time, I was around. I was born in '62, so in the Cultural Revolution's high time, I was around 7, 8 years old. So I was so-called Red Small Guard, Hong Xiaobing. So we are having that what we call in English the sharp head with a long stick, and we are holding that stuff in the village with elders to check anyone cross our village border. So you have no any movement freedom in Cultural Revolution until 1978. After 78, yes, we did have a small time, very short period, but it was only limited to Central Asia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, former communists. After 91, when the Soviet collapsed, the Central Asian get independent. Then the control was again back. So if you look at in the outside world, Uyghur wasn't that big population from China. Our freedom of movement was limited. Only the government allowed people can go outside. And we heard a lot of the story about Uyghur to get passport, how difficult it was. I spent almost like 15,000 China yuan to get my passport. And it's around a year. So first condition, no free movement. Second one, press free, news free. Does in China ever existed press free? Ask any Chinese intellectual. Answer is no. Third condition, that is come with modern technology, which is you have free internet, free communication with the electronic device. Do in China anyone have this freedom? Even Chinese? No. So how this so-called jihadism or terrorism or extremism ideology come to East Turkestan? How it can? No human freedom, movement freedom, no press free press, no internet freedom. How this can impact Uyghur people? Only if the Chinese government allowed or Chinese government implanted this ideology to some specific, they chosen people. They try to label Uyghur as terrorists so they can use it. So they planted a few, probably, that's my assumption. And another one, I will rebook it. Another one evidence is before 9/11 in 2001, just before 1 week, it was in Beijing having a meeting. I forgot what it was. And the governor of the East Turkestan, Wang Lequan, the party boss, he was having a meeting. And I remember in the newspaper, when someone asked him, is that in Urumqi or in Kashgar, have some nationality, some clash or disunity? And he was saying, no. We are living in a peaceful harmony. The nationality unity was ever since the best time. It was everyone living in a happy life, blah, blah, blah. He did a whole hour-long speech describing in the whole East Turkestan, Khan, Uyghur, Kazakh, everyone living a very, very rosy picture. It's a good. Everyone is happy. Then 9/11 happened. After 1 or 2 weeks later, Wang Lequan, no one invited him. He gave a speech, invited journalists, and say, we are the victim of the terrorism. We have terrorists in here. Separatists, terrorists, and they were incited by the international jihadists. So a weeks early, he was picturing a rosy picture in East Turkestan. Everyone is happy life. And after a week, it was switched. Everything is changed. So Uyghur now becomes terrorists. After 9/11, it seems like Uyghur was part of the 9/11. No, Uyghur people is a very peaceful, peace-loving, art-loving. Just look at Uyghurs Mukam, Uyghurs Mashira, man and woman. We are all together. We are very nature-friendly, very low, passionate people. We don't like extremism. Any kind of. If we are not that over-friendly, how can that 6% Chinese become 60% Chinese population? From 49, 6% Chinese. How can it drastically expand it to 60% if they are violent people? Is it possible? No. So this accusation is categorically fabricated to serve for the Chinese nationalism goals, an absurd accusation. It's nothing related to the reality. And even I can give you some analyzation of the so-called, I don't want to take too long, just for two incidents. One is the Tiananmen Square. If I'm not wrong, in 2014, sometime in summer, one jeep crashed into the Tiananmen Square and died a few people. And the Chinese say it's terrorists. And it is very short description in the Chinese news. Even this news was contradictory. First one, they accused this was a long time plot, and the accused, and they all three of them all died. His son, 60 years old mother, and the driver's wife, son's wife, with 6 months pregnancy. And these three people, according to the Chinese news description, they plotted long ago, and they drive a jeep from East Turkestan all the way to Beijing to make this attack. Listen carefully with the Chinese description. And they changed the jeep's plate number 3 times along driving the 5,000 kilometers. They changed it 3 times. How they changed it? From first Xinjiang car plate, changed it to second Xinjiang car plate. And then from the second, changed it to third Xinjiang car plate. All the 2 times they changed was they are already crossed East Turkestan's border. They didn't say which province they changed the plate. Car plate, but they changed it. The irony is why they changed 3 times, but with the same province or same East Turkestan's plate. If me or anyone else, any criminal, when they change the car plate, they can just change it to another province, another state's plate. That's very easily reasonable to hide where you come from. But they didn't. They changed it 3 times, but all time they changed the same area's plate. This is the first one. Second one, if it's a reasonable terrorist, why they don't just take a train or airplane to the Beijing and steal a car, right? Or rent a car? It's possible. If you want to die, what it matter? You steal a car. It doesn't matter. So this is a very, this terrorist, so-called terrorist is very, in my mind, it was almost like idiotic. And then the police say, after the car, they crashed to the Tiananmen Square's the bridge, it was get fire. And they say, the fire was inside of the car. They intentionally used the gas and burned it. And my question is, how can someone driving so fast? Is the driver did the light, or the 60 years old mother, or the 6 months pregnant wife sitting on the back? And then with a Chinese police description, news report, inside of the car, it has a bucket. In that bucket, it was the gasoline. And when you are driving very fast, how you keep the bucket not spilling out, not something else happen? No. And then the police find, after the car burned with the gasoline inside of the car, they find out some pamphlets with paper written Arabic. So the whole car was burned. People was dying. And then you still can find some paper pamphlet preaching Islam. Terrorism. Is that reasonable? I don't know. That's the Chinese logic. And then they find out a placket. It was closed. And on that, with the Chinese police officer saying, it's written, and Islamics, when you start something, you read Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, which means, in the name of Allah, I start this thing. In the name of the Allah. Or whatever. This is a basic for Muslim to start something. But it was never ever in any terrorist's flag. In that ISIS or whatever, their flag only write La ilaha illallah. Great of the God, but the God. That's the thing. But in China, in their news report, this so-called terrorists even don't know how to write the slogan of the terrorist. So it is very contradictory. And another one happened in Xinjiang. It was a family, and they rented a house. They were living over there, and someone tipped, say, there has a Uyghur. And they were scared when the police with the car, everything come. So they didn't open the door, and they shoot them and say they were terrorists. And now we have this guy who rented the house to that Uyghur in New York, and he also get arrested because he rented the house and he was forced to follow the police narrative. And then a few years later, they run away from Xinjiang. Now he lives in New York. And over there, that house, never any weapon. It was basically a family of Uyghur doing barbecue to make a life. Just because they didn't open the door, the police shoot them to death and fabricated that terrorist case. That's how the Chinese government's terrorism come from. In 1911, after the Manching dynasty was overthrown, China was in a very weak central government. All the colony under the Qing Empire left over for the last governor's hand. And East Turkestan was the same. At the time was Yang Zengxin. And then Yang Zengxin used a kind of tricky way, keep the people ignorant to control the East Turkestan. And because he is outsider and he was left over from the Manchun dynasty, bureaucrat, and so he just wants to grab more wealth and then leave. So he started to exploit people. Then some of Chinese officials used that and overthrew him, murdered him. And then came Jin Shuren, another one Chinese official. And this Jin Shuren worsened the situation, and he also started to exploit the people, grabbing the land. That was the outside or from upper level situation. And from the local point. Late 19th century started from Central Asia a movement. It's called Jadidism. Jadidism is basically, if we translate to English, probably a new school or new form of education, something like that. So this basically came from Crimea, Kazan Tatar, and because the Russians modernization came to Russian, and then from the Russian had influence on the Tatar living in Crimea and in other places, Central Asia. Then this gradually going west, and it had a very famous personal in Kazan. His name is Ismail Gaspali, and he is a Tatar. He started printing, and he had a very famous journal called Translation. And this journal basically preaching all Turkish people, we need to unify our language, which means intellectual or the language, and then we need new style of education, etc. And this journal, since its inception, started. It was printed in the Crimea, Kazan, Crimea, and the east side it was come to East Turkestan, Kumul, Chinese call Hami, and the west it can go to Istanbul, even and the Bosnia. Someplace, which means all these regions people can read the same printed in Kazan, one journal, one news. And following that initiative in Central Asia started a new education, new school. What is means new school? The old school is more like madrasa, and it was basically teaching religion. And it was very slow because the old method is reciting the Quran, reciting the classic Islamic books, scriptures, etc. It includes some Persian classic book like Shahnameh, Gulistan Bostan from the Saidi, etc. But the new education is basically added math, even the sport, music, physics, chemical, and it was starting to teach from alphabet. So this method was enlightening the people. And this method in 1890 sometimes come to Kashgar. And in Kashgar set up first the new school was two very famous Uyghur entrepreneur. His name is Musa Bai, and his son, he has two sons, Baudun Bai, Wissam Bai, and they set up this school. First in Kashgar, Atush, Kashgar, and then to Ulja. Then some Uyghur after graduate from this school, some entrepreneur from Uyghurs send these kids to Istanbul, to Russian, to study. And this intellectual, I would say it's modern intellectual, started to grow up and bring back some new ideology. It include reform, nationalism, and some communism, all kind of. And within that impact in Kashgar, in Ulja, started Uyghurs printing, and more people enlightened. Then within that Chinese from the Manching leftover officials exploitation, the clash within Uyghur and with the outsiders, local people with the outsiders, conqueror become very tense, and then started uprising in early 1930 from Kumul. Started this uprising. The leader was named Hojni Azaji, and within this start, the whole East Turkestan become a hot spot. So in Aksu and Kashgar, in Khotan, all Uyghur intellectuals started to bring the people and enlighten the people and telling them what happened in the world, and we need independence. And this awakened nationalism within compounded by the Chinese exploitation. So the people rise up, and with this rise up, they all come to Kashgar in 1933, 12th of November. The first East Turkestan Islamic Republic was set up and announced. It had a constitution, and its constitution is very modern. Respect all the different religion, promote education, science, live with all neighbor in harmony, respect others, etc. It's very modern. And that Islamic Republic was first republic in the whole Islamic world. No any Islamic country at the time had that definition with Islam and the republic name. So East Turkestan Islamic Republic was set up. But unfortunately, at the time, Russian was become the communist Soviet. So the Soviets, they don't want say in that Uyghurs region come out a independent and not friendly with Soviet ideology kind of a country set up. So Soviet Council in Urumqi conspired with Chinese governor at the time, already changed it to Shihezi, and they worked together and sent, actually, the Russian Soviet sent a division of Red Army, crossed the border into the Uyghur East Turkestan, and they crashed all national army. So after a few months, this first East Turkestan Republic was crashed. It existed probably around 6 months. That's a very tragedy. Of course, I won't deny also the Uyghur people at the time wasn't fully prepared, not only in the weapon, military training, whatever. Also, in some degree, and ideologically, also not well prepared. So within the inside the different group, they couldn't come together, become a unified one voice. That also impacted, gives the Soviet Union and also gives the Chinese occupation force advantage because of this unity. But if we look at the big picture, the Soviet sending the Red Army, that is a decisive element to crush of the East Turkestan Republic, Islamic Republic. That's the first one. And then after a few years, in 1944, after Soviet defeated Nazi, and also in China was the civil war with communists, with nationalists, and the governor of the East Turkestan from the Chinese side, he was become a nationalist and arrested some Soviets personnel in East Turkestan. At the time, Uyghur people also, because of the Chinese nationalist government's oppression, was very exploited and killed. So the anger and was rising, and it was in the tipping point. Then the Soviet gave a signal they will help Uyghur. So the Uyghur intellectual grabbed that chance, and then they started uprising from Ulja. Very soon they liberated Ulja and surrounding. Then they marched to three position. One is source, one is north, one is central, and then the national, actually after uprising third day, after the liberating the Ulja, the leadership announced East Turkestan Republic. No more Islamic definition in front. It's East Turkestan Republic. It was a more modern one, have some Soviet influence on that. It was set up in 1944, again, 12th of November. It has some meaning. Why it was set up in the same day with 33 in Kashgar, which the leadership, the whole Uyghur, Kazakh, the East Turkestani, they try to send a message. This is the continuation of the 33th Republic, continuation of the Uyghur nationalism, independence movement. So that's why It was the same day, and only after 3 days of the uprising. It wasn't not whole region was liberated. Only a part of that was liberated. So this republic was set up. It had a first president, Ali Khan Ture, and the whole government set up. And then they start to march within 3 directions, central, north, south, and very soon they liberated Tarbakhatai, Altai, 3 regions. And then in the central, they were almost on the door of Urumqi, in the west bank of the Manas River, and in the south route, they were already in Aksu, Bai, Onsu, all was liberated. But at that moment, the nationalist Chinese government had some deal with Soviet Union. Then the weapon majorly come from Soviet. So the Soviets stopped supporting all weapons. So the national army don't have weapon, and we don't have the firearms factory, whatever, not yet set up. So the East Turkestan government's leadership decide to go with negotiation with the Chinese government, and they had, after a year on, had 11 article of peace negotiation announced, and within that, the East Turkestan government virtually existed until 49. And then in 49, after the communists conquered most of the Chinese proper, and the Soviet made another one deal with communist government, and they asked Uyghurs leadership, East Turkestan leadership, to go to Moscow, and via Moscow go to the Beijing to have some negotiation with new communist government. But when they were crossed the border from Volga to Soviet, they despaired. After 6 months, around 1950 March around, then comes news the whole East Turkestan leadership was flying to Beijing and had a airplane accident, hit a mountain, all died. And after another 6 months, they brought back some remains, say this is your leader's remain, and they buried them. We don't know if that inside the coffin is our leader or someone else. I don't think they can preserve at that time for almost a year in the mountain. The body can still exist. And another one theory I would speculate is after airplane hit a mountain, within the Soviet and the Chinese narrative, it was exploded, and still you can find all the leadership's body, and after almost a year you can bring it back. It's a little bit fantasy. And at the time, inside the so-called airplane was Ahmadjan Qasim, the second president, Ishaq Bek Munanov, defense minister, Abdikarim Abbasov, interior minister, Dalil Khan Sugurbayov, vice defense minister, and some few others, secretary or something. So they all died. And within that, then the Chinese communists came to Urumqi in 1950. Gradually, they grabbed the national army and disbanded most of them, killed some of them, accusing them nationalist, pan-Turkist, etc. Whatever they can find accusation. And then we lost our last East Turkestan Republic.刘仲锦先生讲的非常准确。18世纪开始，因为欧洲对俄罗斯的影响，沙皇，伴随着沙皇俄国的现代化，欧洲的新文化，欧洲的这种新的思想，民主、自由、个人自由这些思想呢，由俄罗斯传入到中亚的塔塔尔人。因为塔塔尔人曾经是统治过俄罗斯的，所以他们呢，在和俄罗斯的融合方面可能比更多一点交流。所以塔塔尔人是最早接受这种欧洲新思想的，尤其是克里米亚， 这边的塔塔尔人。然后这些塔塔尔人呢，因为他们是突厥的一部分，语言和我们一样，所以他们就开始对中亚的，那个时候不存在中亚5个共和国，概念都没有。当时中亚这边叫西突厥斯坦，或者叫俄罗斯突厥斯坦，我们这边呢就是东突厥斯坦，或者被有些人称为中国突厥斯坦，就是 Chinese 突厥斯坦。那么当时塔塔尔人呢，到中亚突厥斯坦以及到东突厥斯坦这边开始传播这种新的教育方式。这个新教育呢，就是包括数学、化学，从过去的那种纯宗教教育形式转变到有点像那个过去中国的学堂教育到新式教育一样。当时中亚包括维吾尔人和中亚是一体的，所以呢，在教育上也从那种过去的宗教教育学校转变为新式学校。中国人也有一些研究学者把它称为扎基德运动，用阿拉伯语就是 jadidism，jadid 的意思就是新的意思 ，ism 呢就是新的运动，新式运动。那么这个呢，就从18世纪开始传入到东突厥斯坦，维吾尔人在阿图什，在伊犁，开始有一些兴办实业、出版业，然后呢有学校，这些学校呢开始培养一部分人，同时呢，当时我刚才在英语里也讲了，中亚有一个非常有名的一个人，塔塔尔人，他的名字叫 Ismail Gaspali。伊斯玛依中文里头把它好像说是伊斯玛依乔什么，这个人呢，当时在卡山办了一个出版社，印刷厂，然后呢他自己出版了一个杂志叫翻译杂志，这个杂志呢在卡山出版。这大概是在就是19世纪初，在卡山出版的这本杂志，最远发行到最东边呢，发行到哈密，现在的哈密市这一带，最西呢一直传播到伊斯坦布尔，一直到现在的这个前南斯拉夫的这块土地上，大家都可以念。有人投稿，有一些维吾尔人在喀什。在这边呢写他们的一些想法，然后通过各种的渠道送到卡山，然后在这个杂志上发表，然后呢他们开始搜集研究突厥民族的历史，也是从那时候开始。最关键的这个当时呢就是这个新式教育。那么最早的新式学校是18几年在阿图什建立，然后在伊犁。然后呢，又从伊犁开始，有2个维吾尔实业家非常有名，其实是一家人，祖父叫穆萨巴尤夫，穆萨，他呢是阿图什人，他最早在那边办了一个厂子，就18世纪末19世纪初，然后用这个收入呢办了学校，然后他又把这个工厂呢又一部分迁到伊犁，因为伊犁离中亚很近，在那儿又办了几家工厂，皮革加工厂，一些设备是从德国引入的。想象一下，19世纪在伊犁有从德国引进的一些设备的一些工厂，那么在这工厂里头呢，有很多维吾尔人打工，他们呢就是在这个附属学校里头毕业的，也有职业培训。然后这些学生里头比较优秀的呢，这一家企业家维吾尔人，于山拜，包顿拜2个人，出钱把第一批维吾尔人大概10几个人，一部分到俄罗斯，一部分到土耳其学习。国民党政府最后一个新疆省省长Mesud Sabri 就是第一批到土耳其学医的维吾尔人，他是伊犁人，他到土耳其在伊斯坦布尔医学院学习毕业回来以后， 在伊犁行医，然后他也办了学校。那么后面呢，他在49年担任了国民党政府的最后一任省长，他也同时也是第一位维吾尔人担任的省长，应该说从这个满清被推翻以来，行政第一把手。那么当时这个维吾尔人的这种现代教育呢，是比中国那边的要早得多，尤其是在中亚学习的这一部分，包括呢当时这个出版社，以及呢还有一些从印度学习回来的。那么印度当时呢都是属于那个还在英国的托管下，所以呢英国的教育也是属于印度的教育也属于英式欧洲教育，所以一部分维吾尔人在印度学习回来。那么如果我们呢有一本书叫什么The Land of Laughter， 可笑的土地应该翻译成。那么他的作者就是最早的维吾尔人在美国，他从中亚到土耳其，然后17、18世纪他的祖父母大概17世纪末18世纪到土耳其，然后又到美国然后呢他又长大以后在芝加哥学习，然后他又回到印度，然后从印度进入到东突厥斯坦进行一些新兴的教育各种活动。所以这个维吾尔人接受这个东突厥斯坦的维吾尔人接受这种现代教育、现代思想要远远早于这个中国这边的。所以刘仲景先生这个他是根据他的历史研究得出来的。从我所理解的也是这样的。比如说我可以给你看一本书。
第一个东突厥斯坦伊斯兰共和国是马中英消灭的还是苏联红军消灭的？我坚持我的观点，我认为是苏联红军把它给消灭了。原因在哪儿呢？马中英只是把喀什噶尔占领了，东突厥斯坦政府的全部人员撤退到了刹车县。真正的摧毁东突厥斯坦伊斯兰共和国的是苏联派的代表和东突厥斯坦共和国的总统霍吉尼亚扎基见面以后，向他施加压力，要求他撤销东突厥斯坦共和国伊斯兰共和国，然后抓捕全部政府人员，然后给他承诺让他担任新疆省政府副主席，南疆保安司令，然后承诺给他的军队全部新式苏联的装备。在这个条件下，霍吉尼亚扎基也就是东突厥斯坦伊斯兰共和国的总统答应了苏联代表的要求，宣布取消东突厥斯坦共和国。所以说从这个意义上说，政府这个马中英只是把成立东突厥斯坦伊斯兰共和国的喀什噶尔占领了，而且是短暂占领，然后他又走了。而政府的人员，这个政府并没有宣布因为马中英占了喀什噶尔他们就解散了。真正的这个东突厥斯坦伊斯兰共和国被解散被取消，是在霍吉尼亚扎基和苏联代表当时进来的苏联红军的代表跟他在阿克苏见面，在答应了这个城下之盟以后，才把这个东突厥斯坦伊斯兰共和国 没有了的。所以从这个意义上来说，马中英只是把喀什噶尔占领了，而不是把东突厥斯坦共和国打没有了。在这一点上，我们应该清楚的是，马中英并没有抓捕任何一个东突厥斯坦伊斯兰共和国的任何官员。他占领喀什噶尔，抢劫3天，然后他也撤到边境那边去了，然后就是跨到苏联那边去了。那么这个冲突呢，是当时和马中英一开始是作为联盟的，就是东突厥斯坦共和国总统霍吉尼亚扎吉和马中英之间的这种冲突，有2个人之间的这种战利品的分配不公，以及呢苏联在当中的挑拨离间，最后使得马中英和霍吉尼亚扎吉2人之间发生冲突。而东突厥斯坦共和国成立的时候，霍吉尼亚扎吉也不在喀什噶尔，他当时在库尔勒，他是被政府以他的名望当时在东突厥斯坦很高，所以他人还不在的时候给了他这个总统的名义。实际上东突厥斯坦伊斯兰共和国是总理负责制的，总理呢是萨贝特大毛拉阿吉，而萨贝特大毛拉阿吉呢最后是在刹车被霍吉尼亚扎吉答应给苏联取消东突厥斯坦共和国以后，是他亲自自己派兵去把总理抓起来，然后押到阿克苏，然后再从阿克苏交给盛世才的他的当时的军队，实际上是通过苏联人，这样才是这个东突厥斯坦伊斯兰共和国彻底的没有了领导人。首先是总统背叛了自己的承诺，成为了苏联的工具，然后呢这个总统又把自己的政府的总理以及其他的人员，他能抓捕的人都抓了，然后又送给了中国政府，这样这个东突厥斯坦共和国才消失了。那么马中英呢，只是和霍吉尼亚扎吉打仗，那么占了喀什噶尔，但是他没有抓捕任何一个东突厥斯坦共和国的人员，他只是把喀什占领了，东突厥斯坦共和国领导人全部撤到了刹车，军队撤到了刹车，一部分撤到了和田。也就是说，这个政府有没有喀什噶尔，他只要人在是运作的，只有当这些成立共和国的人没有了的时候，这个共和国才会消亡。那么事实也是这样的，当最后总统把总理抓起来送给中国军队，这个悲剧发生以后，这个共和国才在历史的这一页上悲剧性的消失了。所以我们不能上这个中共的这个维基百科呢，可以作为一般的普及历史的常识使用，但不能作为历史的这种结论的一个依据。我们要用有说服力的东西。如果仅是因为马中英占领了喀什噶尔，就认为东突厥斯坦共和国是被马中英消灭的，那这个是明显是共产党要把维吾尔人和回族人之间的这个关系搞成世仇这个目的出发，也是为了那个宣扬所谓的杀汉灭回的口号有效才编出来的。实际上这个口号也不存在，马中英也没有把东突厥斯坦共和国，不是马中英消灭的，马中英是占据了喀什噶尔，但政府还在，人员还在，而这个政府最后消亡是在他们自己的总统的手里头，这是最悲剧的地方。实际上